Tonight we start our eighth week, or we're in the middle of our eighth week of doing presentations from photographers who've been covering the war in Ukraine. And tonight we have Daria Svertilova, who's presenting. Sorry, you'll say it again. And tomorrow we have Carol Guzzi, and on Friday we have Paula Bronstein with a it looks like a guest translator, Anya Tomko, who will be stepping in to help us out. With that, Dara, it's all yours. Thank you so much for coming and doing it. Dara, you should know it's 1 o'clock at night, and she's coming in from Paris. So
thank you, Frank. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for this initiative and for continuing covering what's going on in Ukraine. I'm really thankful for that, for the attention of the world that is still turned to Ukraine, because we are the 23rd of February today, and tomorrow it will be exactly 1 year anniversary since the full-scale invasion started. And I remember that the very first weeks of the full-scale war, me and my friends and all Ukrainians, we were really afraid of the situation when the world forgets about the war that was happening and that is still happening. So thank you for bringing the attention to the Russo-Ukrainian war that unfortunately is still going.
And please tell us where you're from and your family. Give us that background. That would be great to know.
Of course, since it has been like 5 years that I'm constantly moving between France and Ukraine, because originally I'm from Ukraine. I was born and raised there, but I moved to France to make my studies, and I'm currently in my final year at school, so I'm finishing my master's. And I was working on my personal projects in Ukraine, but I was also working in France on some commissions, and also developing my career as a photographer, because in Ukraine, the industry of photography is incomparably not developed to the one in France, as you may understand. And my family, my parents, they were not in Ukraine on the 24th. So they went on vacation actually, and they were about to come back like a couple of days after the 24th. So my dad couldn't come back, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to leave the country, as all the men between like 18 and 60. And they decided to wait a bit in Moldova, like to rent a flat for just 1 month, then another month, then another month. And so by now it's like it has been a year. And my mom, she's constantly like going back and forth, like going back to Ukraine to take care of my grandparents. And it's every time it's kind of like a long trip. I'm going to Ukraine on the 1st of March, so it will be like a 2-day travel. Every time it's really long, but it's also good to be back, even if the feeling is really, really strange.
Yeah, and you will go back to your home, where your house is, right? Just to check up on it?
Yeah, I always pass by my family house, my family flat, and then I also go to Kiev. I would say that like Odessa, where I'm originally from, and Kiev are my two main cities in Ukraine, because Odessa was the city where I raised and where I was born, but Kiev, it was the city where I grew up, I would say. where I started to go out, where I met a lot of friends, the cities that really influenced me. So I also was working in these two cities in Ukraine. And I will probably start to share the screen and also introduce myself, like what I do in photography. So okay. So I'm, oops, wait, I wanted to go on the first page. No, it's not this one. Yes, it should be this one. It should be the first one, right? Yes, it works.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm specialized in documentary and art photography. I really enjoy working on long-term documentary projects because in my artistic practice, I'm interested in transmitting feelings rather than piece of information. And the war in Ukraine, I tell it through my personal perception and through my personal story. So I wanted to start from the project that I started to work on before the full-scale invasion, but it was already like the war was already going on in Ukraine since 2014, and it's really important to remember that. And in 2014, I was 17 years old. So I really remember this moment when something changed dramatically. And what really impressed me at the time is that the Maidan revolution in Kiev started from the manifestation of students. And I was a student myself back in time, and I was really deeply impressed by how quickly events turned on then. And a couple of years later, when I moved to France, I decided to work on the series that would speak about Ukrainian students, because for me, this category of Ukrainians represented really well our desire of changes, and this change in mentality of Ukrainians, because we didn't want to be associated with Soviet Union or with Russia anymore. And this was very present in the mindset of young people, of students. So I started to work on this project that I call temporary homes, and I chose to focus on student residences, student dormitories, because for me, these places, they represented really well the coexistence of our Soviet heritage and young pro-Western, I would say, generation that was living in these dorms, but they decorated the rooms in very personal and different ways. And I also wanted to work on this project because after 2014, a lot of journalists and a lot of medias from abroad, they came to make projects about Ukraine, but I found that they were not representing like Ukrainian youth in the way that I saw it, and I wanted to show young people of Ukraine as they were. I mean, not like through the prism of rave culture or war or all this like clubbing scene of Kiev.
Suffering, yeah.
Yeah. So wait, yeah, yeah. And I really enjoyed meeting these people because I also learned a lot from them. And I every time I was going to their rooms, I didn't know what to expect. So it was kind of interesting challenge for me also. I would just like set up a meeting with them, and I would arrive, and every time it was a surprise. So it was really interesting to work on this series. And yeah, what I noticed working on this project, that you see traces of globalization in nearly every picture. I mean, here, for example, on the left picture, the girl, she did this napkin and she wrote the text in English. Or, for example, the girl on the right that is dressed like in this sweatshirt that can be like a sweatshirt on any other teen from Europe or from the US. And that I wanted to show while working on the project. And also I wanted to show peace. I didn't want to show war, because I thought that it was really important to show young people that were full of hope for future, because what we felt after the revolution of Maidan, we were full of hopes. And most of these people, they were doing studies in Ukraine to stay in Ukraine and to work in Ukraine. And I found it really, really beautiful. And what I felt also, like after the revolution of Maidan, I felt that we now have a chance to become a European country, to get rid of our Soviet past.
And would you say that most young people have that same type of enthusiasm or same type of hope?
We surely had before the full-scale invasion. And now I would tell you that our moods are quite pessimistic.
Pessimistic, okay.
I mean, of course, we continue to say that we will rebuild everything and Ukraine will win and we will restore all what was ruined, but it will take a lot of energy, a lot of time, and we also think about all these people who left and who will not go back, because they will just start their lives somewhere else, especially people with children. I think it's the most difficult, because people with children, they kind of like, when they move, when they go to some safe country, they install there, and kids, they start to go to kindergarten, and so they don't want to change their lives. It's less easy than for young people.
Yeah. And do these young people, your contemporaries, do they speak about the government and wanting to make it, don't have all the corruption and everything else, like a fresh start? I mean, are they speaking in those terms as well?
Of course, yes, of course. like that is actually the big problem in Ukrainian society, is that we have a really like every country has this big gap between old and young generation, but in our case it's very particular, because we had this Soviet generation and now we have this like pro-European generation, and the gap is huge. And also like young generation is really Ukraine oriented, means that young generation stand for our national identity, while old generation associate themselves with the Soviet Union and with Russia, because when we say Soviet Union, we would say Russia, because all national like identity of all nations that were part of Soviet Union were kind of like erased. They were unified, and there was this like image of Soviet humans. It was a Soviet person who was created artificially by just eliminating all the traditions, all the like national cultures. And now we're trying to come back, to reestablish, right, to reestablish it. And that's also what young people are doing.
And is there a young person that has the you know, beyond the leader now, is there a young person that people look up to, you know, somebody young, like in their 30s, 35, you know, that can bring all of you young people together?
If you speak about kind of like a musician or like public figure.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I mean, just something to think about.
Yeah, I will think about, but like all of us, how to say, like now I can't remember any concrete one. I would really say that our president became kind of like a role model.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's quite young, I mean.
Yeah.
So now I'm moving forward to the work that I did after the start of the full-scale invasion. We also call it, like in Ukraine, we also call it the big war, the Great War.
Is where we are now.
Yes.
Okay.
And when the big war started, I was in France, and I had left Ukraine only 3 weeks before. I was there in the beginning of February, and I was working on some project there. I came back, and I remember that the atmosphere was really tensed back in time. But we were so skeptic. I mean, nobody didn't want to believe. And I remember that I was leaving, and the 3 weeks, 3 weeks after the full-scale invasion started, and I was really lost. Like, it was very difficult time, being far also, but being there mentally. First weeks nobody understood what to do. It was like total chaos, and all this news that you see on Telegram, and being on distance, like it was also very hard, because in Ukraine, at least, like, you were living through all of this, and here, like being abroad, gave me this kind of like double reality, that I'm in a safe place, but I'm not here, like maybe physically, but not mentally. And it's insane that all this war we can witness online. And all the events, we learn them like immediately. So I was not in Ukraine the first months of full-scale invasion, but I really wanted to express what I was feeling. And I started to receive some invitations to participate in exhibitions, to publish my work about these young people, about these Ukrainian students. And I was really disturbed by sending this project now. These photographs, they are peaceful, but the context has changed. So what I decided to do, being on distance, is to make a video work with the students whom I photographed for the project. With some of them, because with some of them I kept contact, and we were like texting from time to time. And I recorded our Zoom conversations. And I asked them same questions. So my first question was, how did you spend the first day of the war? Then the question was, where are you now? How do you feel now? And I also asked them what home became for them now, because some of them were displaced. And the conversations, I was recording them between March and June.
And where were those interviews happening?
I did them online, but people were really in different places. For example, the first girl that you see on the left, she was in Berlin. The second boy was, like, boys, they were in Ukraine, of course, because they are older than 18 years old. And the girls, they were like kind of like everywhere in Europe, in different places. So yeah, the first one was in Berlin. The third one was in Warsaw. The fourth.
And how did you make contact with them?
I texted them, because as I said, I kept contact with a lot of them, and I was just like checking on them like from time to time, and it was really important to get their news also at the time, because like people in Europe, they wanted to exhibit these works, but first I always ask people whom I photographed if they're okay to be exhibited. And also I felt that it was not right to exhibit these pictures without giving a context. So I recorded these conversations to give them this voice, to give the voice, and to show what actually these young people were going through. And I really, what impressed me the most is that all of them remembered really well the first day, like how it happened. And I think it's really the day that we will unfortunately remember for the rest of our lives, because like this shock, I think it's something that stays in your memory like forever. And I will not show the video now, but I shared the link.
Yeah, the link will be put in the chat room for everyone to see. So, Daria, was this a little bit therapeutic for you to be in contact with your peers, to understand? Because the way you describe it, it's like the way you said, it's a moment we won't forget. For me, it feels like the way Americans went through with 9/11. Like you just won't forget that, right? And having this community for you personally, what was that like for you?
You're right. It had this therapeutic also function for me to make this work, and I felt it. I felt that it was also the most right thing to do at that moment, because I was not in Ukraine, so I even didn't understand at the time, was it safe, was it not safe. My mother would say, like, no, don't go there by now. So it was also a right thing to do, because I was on distance. I wanted to speak about the war, but I wanted also to speak about it through my personal perception. So yeah, also calling these people and learning how they were doing, and understanding that we are all in this together and we share the same tragedy, same pain. It was indeed really, really important for me.
Great. So somebody has a question. In one of the previous photographs, in one of the dorm rooms, there's a man with his uplifted arms and the word peace below.
Yeah. Wait.
And can you tell us where we can find that photograph, or what that photograph is?
Yes, of course. This is yes.
Oh, that logo there. It's on that slide next to the young girl there.
Yes, I wanted previously to show.
Yeah, there it is.
It's actually the girl from the previous picture. It's the little poster from her room.
Cool.
And this girl, she's also present in the video, and she's incredible. I mean, her room was like a piece of art, because she decorated it in so exuberant way with a lot of personal belongings. It was really beautiful, and she put these things that she brought it herself, and also a lot of different posters like diary notes, and this
Ballerina
shoes.
shoes. Yeah.
Yes, because she was doing ballet. Yes, of course, now in the context of the war, we see new meaning in this picture. That's also why I put it, because it's so it seems so peaceful now, also with the sunlight entering the room and the word peace, and now you understand that all of this is destroyed, and this room doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it still exists physically, but the girl has left, and she took all of these things from the wall, and some of these things she lost. So she's now living in Berlin, and I actually photographed her a couple of weeks ago, and I will show you her new room.
Do you know that organization, that peace organization? Any idea of that logo?
No, but I can ask her if you're interested.
You can. And you can get back to me, and I'll get back. I think Howard asked that question. Okay, I'll make a note.
But yeah, it looks like it can be a logo, or it can be a poster also. But yeah, I will ask her.
Yeah, if you remember. Okay.
And so video work was like my first reaction of what was going on. And when I came back to Ukraine in summer, I had this need to photograph the occupied territories of Kiev region. It was the beginning of August, so Kiev region was deoccupied in the beginning of April. So these places that I found, they were not something new for me, because I already saw them through a lot of press photographs, but I also felt it was important for me to go there, and I saw this car that for me looks like a monster, actually. And it was staring on me when I saw it. And I saw it on the car cemetery of Irpin. And what is particular about this car cemetery, because there are few in Kiev region, what is particular is that this car cemetery is just next to actual like cemetery for people. And yeah, I found it really really is like, how to say, strong. It's also really sad to kind of compare these two places, to see them next to each other. And this is another car cemetery in Hostomel, just next to Antonov Airport. It's actually from where they started the invasion. It was one of the first like strategic places. And what surprised me the most when I went there in summer is that every like nature around was green. It was not at all like like the pictures I saw, pictures that were taken in April, because in April everything was gray, and these photographs, they had this gloomy and really heavy energy. Yes.
Yeah. You know,
And
what we discussed before we went on, like even this, you know, it's a neat street. I mean, it's all these burnt out cars, but somebody came by and swept that street to make it all clean and neat. I mean, that's one of the things we've seen on and on and on with these presentations, that, you know, whether it's a building or cars, it's all neat.
Actually, it's yes, you're right, and it's a really interesting commentary, because when I was looking on this picture, I never paid attention that the road was clean, but it's totally that.
I mean, it's just, you know, like, who's doing that? Who's compelled to do that? You know, it speaks to the dignity of these of the Ukrainian people, that in all this sickness, this crazy, there needs to be order. It's really intriguing to me.
Yes, it's true. It's true that even the pictures I will show later, like everything is quite neat. And yeah, all this green nature around these ruins, it was really strange to see, because nature was kind of like indifferent to all these ruins and to all what was going on in human world. And that was also close to Antonov Airport in Hostomel. It was a completely ruined warehouse. And what surprised me also when I saw this place, I saw it from the building that was next to it, and this place was it's like a lot of different warehouses, like where different businesses stock their goods. And the warehouse from where I took this picture, it was occupied by Russian army. And actually, the guardian who let me in, he was in captivity. I mean, it was not the captivity as it can be with deportation, but he was surveyed. He was like under Russian guard in this place. And when I saw this view, I was really surprised to see these houses untouched on the background and completely devastated first plan. And for me, it's really representative of this cruel injustice and kind of, I don't know, of this injustice of the war, because you never know what's going to happen and where. And there can be a completely destroyed place next to kind of neat and clean residential district. And this was also in Hostomel. There used to be a residential district next to Antonov Airport that was very heavily bombed. And when I went there, I actually took a bus, and then I walked for really, really long by foot, because I didn't know how I would exactly get there. I didn't have a car. So I went by foot, and when I arrived in this district, you actually get there after a very big field, and there's nothing, just like grasses and trees. And then you arrived, and it's kind of like constructed in the form of square. And the feeling was if I got to in a ghost town, like there was total silence, and as it was a windy day, there was this sound of something cracking, like some metal things like cracking. And you can see there's some kind of stone hanging on some metal construction, and there were nearly no people. But I saw this car, and I saw the man going to take some things that he still had in this house. And there were a few people still, and there was even like a little shop sending beer, and somebody was sitting and drinking beer next to all these ruins. And I was just surprised how life is still present here in this like total ruin, and the cars that arrived absolutely normally to.
Right. So Daria, can you take off your photojournalist hat? Take that off for a moment. As a young person, seeing your country destroyed like this, how do you adjust to that? How do you think about that from a patriotic standpoint, from an independent standpoint, of that, your country is in ruins? And how do you deal with that, with your friends and your colleagues, trying to get sort of the young person's perspective of, I want everyone to come back, I want to rebuild, or I respect the people that are going off, like you mentioned, the young families with their children starting new lives. How do you feel like, just as a young woman walking through these places that you knew as a child, as beautiful homes and all of that, and now here you are?
It's a very cruel feeling, actually. It's a very cruel feeling, and I speak a lot about the war with my friends, and we basically speak only about that, like most of the time. Not only, but it's a main subject that comes back constantly.
Yeah.
And we want to rebuild, of course, but it's so now, like, we start to be so tired. I mean, mentally, it's very tiring, because it's like 1 year of constant stress, and there is this feeling of danger that you never feel safe, even when it's like not a direct danger. This feeling of safety, we lost it. And also what as young people, what we lost is this kind of joy of life, in the sense that everything is easy and you take things lightly, with a light attitude. That we lost indeed.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because we've had other photographers, of course, older than you, and it's interesting to get the young person's perspective on what happens next for your country. And so that's what I was thinking.
I would say that maybe we take things closer to heart than photographers who are older, because even my mom says that maybe if I were at your place at this age and the war would start, I would maybe just like go mad, because it's really intense. And when you're young, I think you take things closer to heart. And we see perspectives, and we want to rebuild, and we want to live in free, independent Ukraine. But at the same time, we understand that it will take years, and it will take a lot of energy. And of course, some people who left, like, they are free to do what they want, and we don't know the situation of every person who left. And in fact, there's no right answer, and that is what's really difficult in the war, is that there's never a right answer. I mean, should they stay or should they leave? And I remember my friend who stayed in Ukraine. She was hesitating for 2 months, and she didn't take the decision to leave, because she felt that it was not right. And I mean, somebody felt that it was right for them. And yes, the war is from the point of human relationship, and from the point of like human values, the war is a very sophisticated situation, because it reveals a lot of bad and good things in people. Also, every decision you take it with heavy heart. You should calculate a lot of things. For example, like, I can speak like about myself. For example, since the full-scale invasion, I refused participating in any cultural events which included Russian artists, and that's my political and moral conviction. Yeah. And recently, like a couple of weeks ago, I declined a big project with big French institution, because they invited, they wanted to stage like Russian opera.
You want no part of that. Yeah, everyone has their line that they won't cross, right? Yeah, I think for all of us, getting a young person's perspective is really it's good for us. Good for us.
I will maybe add some things that will come to my mind while I speak. If I would add something, like, in particular from young person perspective, they also will go on with another series, and I think I will be able to develop more then. So yeah, this was kind of like the same Kiev region, with all this vegetation and flowers blossoming around ruins. It was really strange to see, and what I found striking. And it was really important also to photograph these places, because, for example, in Irpin, they are now started to rebuild. And for example, like the picture you see on the right, it's like a house of culture. They started to rebuild it already, so they repainted the wall. And in the Kiev region, they started rebuilding quite quickly, because everybody understood that Russian army wouldn't come back there. And I felt at that moment, I felt it was important to me to photograph these places, to memorize, and also to witness them myself. And that was actually in Odessa region. It's a place called Zatoka. It's a little town, like 40 minutes of ride from Odessa, and we used to go there in summer with my parents. And it was August, the month of August, when I went there last year. And same, it looked like a ghost town. Like in 1 hour, I would maybe see one person. So it was really, really, really bizarre. And in Russian news, they say that they don't bombard civil objects, only like military infrastructure. And for example, the picture you see on the left, it was like hotel, and it's just like completely ruined now. And on the right, it were like somebody's houses, summer houses next to the sea. And also, seeing these ruins under the sun in summer, and seeing sea next to them, it was it was also really strange, because when you imagine ruins, you would imagine them in kind of gloomy, let's say, landscape, and there it was completely opposite. And also I saw how the places I used to know changed, because as you maybe know, in Odessa, they like Ukrainian army, they hide mines on the shore in case if Russians arrive from the sea. And this summer, last summer, they forbade to swim. So beaches, like central beaches, were empty, and there were police going around. Some people, they did swim, but it was at their own risk, because there were cases when people actually got exploded.
So a mine can stay in the water and still remain active?
Yes.
I don't know.
There are a few types of mines. There is a really huge one that looks like kind of a bacteria, with like round, with a lot of different stuff, kind of like a lot of different tails. It's a mine against military ship. And also there are little ones, like little round ones that they dig into the sand. And that is really tricky, because you never know where it is. And as the sea is constantly like moving with waves, also shore moves, and so you never know where the mine will appear. That's why they just said it's forbidden to swim anywhere in the Odessa region. And yeah, it's kind of like a lottery. I mean, you can swim, but the mine can detonate like a couple of meters from you, and actually you can like lose an arm or a leg. So it's still dangerous. And what is very sad that they estimate that to demine, to like, how we say it in English, demine, or
demine,
to demine
dismantle.
all the shore and Black Sea area in the Odessa region. It may take like 10 years. Yeah, and so that's how I found my city when I went there last year. It's like empty beaches. However, normally at this time there are a lot of people, and Odessa is a really joyful city that's full of life in summer. And this year there were this like little bushes that grew because nobody was going there.
I mean, like having these memories of these places before and realizing what is left, what is going to be left of this country, it's really hard to be optimistic about the future. I mean, like a beach like this, there could be 100 mines, right? We just don't know. I mean, it'll really be an incredibly courageous task for you and your generation of young people to find a way to make this a civilized place to live again. I mean, what that is really a staggering job.
Yeah, I mean, it's very challenging, and it's a huge responsibility, but I believe that we are capable to do it. Because my generation, I think we had to grow up really quickly due to all these events already in 2014, and now. So actually Ukraine, the territory of Ukraine is now like the most mined in the world. When I learned about that, I was like, oh my God, why? And I'm really somebody who loves nature, and I really take care about nature. And also, like, despite the fact that of course there are a lot of people dying and people's lives are priorities, for me what is really painful also is to realize that nature is being destroyed. And speaking about the Black Sea, as I'm a really sea person, I grew up like by sea. I was really upset to learn that Black Sea dolphins are dying because of underwater explosions.
Yeah.
And I was reading some report of a Ukrainian biologist who said that dolphins that we see on the shore, like dead dolphins, they represent only like 5% of what are actually like which amount of dolphins are actually dying, because a lot of them are dying under water, and like some sea creatures, they eat them, so we don't realize the scale, but they're actually like more like there are a couple of thousands already that were killed last summer, and nobody is controlling that. And I mean, like, it's not the priority, of course, because people are dying, but it's also really sad that nature is being heavily affected. And so this was the little series that I did this winter when I came back to Ukraine. It was a period, and it's still a period of electricity shortages. And on the picture, it's my friend Sana Shahmuradova, who is a painter, and she has this workshop in Kiev, which is situated in an old building, which is nearly constantly without electricity. So due to the shortage of electricity, it's impossible to heat it, as it's quite big. And she paints there being fully dressed as if she were outdoors. But she continues to paint, and it's also for me really representative of the mood of my generation, is that despite all these difficulties, we try to do the things we should do, and continue to produce creative work is particularly difficult in this time, because there's already this like mental charge, but also there are all this response that you should give to what's going on, and the events, they happen so quickly that you don't have enough of distance to digest them and to give some really thoughtful response. So I really admire artists who continue to produce.
And what do you do for your therapy?
I see a therapist, actually. I started to see therapists because of the war.
Yeah, and I don't need anything private. I didn't mean to ask you a private question. I mean, from the photographing and going back to your home and all of that.
I really enjoy speaking with people and sharing, and I think it's the most. That's why also therapy works. I mean, I think it's the most efficient thing to do. Also, some distractions that I have here in France, because I have my group of French friends with whom I can speak about diverse things, not only about the war, as I do with my friends from Ukraine, and that really helps. And I feel a lot of support from their side, and that's really things that saved me. One of the things that saved me during the beginning of full-scale war. So yeah, my neighborhood in Odessa. It was the blackout and it was middle of December, and when I arrived to my parents' apartment, like next day, there was a huge missile attack, and in Odessa region, the station is still quite difficult with electricity because of some logistic things, like houses, like electricity, like power stations are situated in the region. And so yeah, the first day I arrived.
So this is your neighborhood. This is your home, your town right here. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, when there is no electricity, there is no heating, and like that day there was no water, and the internet connection works really, really badly when there's no electricity. So you're kind of like being in the bubble of no time, space, dimension, let's say. And of what I felt there, it was less like a feeling of derealization. Like if I was existing, in no time, no space reality, and especially at this time of the year in December, when night starts really early. It's like it starts to get dark around 16 p.m. So the night feels like endless. And actually, I took this picture with the long exposure, and you may see some lights on the window, but actually it's like reflections from cars, because as there's no light at all, like any light appears to be really, really present and bright in the space. So same like my neighborhood in Ukraine. They're mostly like cars with their lights on, but when there are electricity shortages, they, for example, they switch off all street lights, but they keep on the traffic lights. It's like that. Otherwise, it would be like a total collapse. But they still try to save electricity. So it's still quite dark, even if electricity is not cut. And the same about traffic lights. That's like no street lights, but traffic lights are on. And I took a portrait of my friend also at her place. And most of my friends were quite sad this time of the year, because in December we had the impression that the winter would be endless, and also that's what Russians wanted us to feel. They wanted really to play on this feeling of desperation, of despair. And then, if you remember, it's a girl from the beginning. So actually, these pictures are really, really fresh. I did them like 2 weeks ago, and I haven't showed them anywhere yet by now.
In Ukraine?
Sorry?
These are in Ukraine?
No, this is the same girl, but in Berlin, in her, in her room in Berlin. I felt that I wanted to follow actually some people from my project, and particularly those with whom I kept contact all this time. And my project spoke also. My project, I wanted to speak about this temporality of home, of like which place we can call home, and these rooms that they decorated with such passion, and with all their personal belongings, knowing that these rooms they would live in a couple of years. And again, the war created this feeling of a constant move, that you never know where you will need to go next. And this temporality of the place we can call home, it became even more present. Like this question of temporality became even more present. And that's also what I spoke about with 2 girls that I photographed, whom I photographed in Germany, because this girl, she went to Berlin, and the girl you see on the left, I previously also photographed her for the project. She is in Hamburg, And speaking about young generation, she said that now we all have like young people, particularly we have this kind of like refugee syndrome. Moving by saying that, she said that yes, we are constantly moving, we are constantly ready to live somewhere else, and even when you are at some place where you kind of like established, you still have this feeling that maybe it's not my final destination. And this girl appears also in the video.
Right.
And what she said that she actually just started to have like a cool life in Kiev because she's originally from Poltava. Poltava is a Ukrainian city, like it's closer to Kharkiv. And it's kind of same situations that happened to my sister, because my sister, she's younger, so she's kind of like same age as these girls. And she started to have her like more or less stable life in Kiev, and she got a job and she was really happy with everything. And then like it's like all of a sudden things change.
Yeah, a question for you. So you have your world of friends, right? That is very tight. How do you guys connect with the next town and the town 3 miles away and 10 miles away? How is it going to be that the young people find a way to connect their energy to become a force within the building up back of this country?
Well, first of all, I would say that like this feeling of community, it became really like extremely strong during this last year. And if you speaking about like technically how we connect, it's of course like social networks, because everything is shared so quickly. And also what is really impressive is how we collect money for military equipment, because some equipment is sent from abroad, but some little things, like not little, but let's say drones, or like for example some special like military glasses, or goggles, some less how to say, less big things than like cars or like tanks. We are in constant need of all of that. And there are a lot of volunteers who organize fundraisings. And what is really impressive that due to Instagram and due to shares, we managed to buy all this equipment in quite short terms. I mean, because you know how it works, because nearly every person who, like every Ukrainian person who sees kind of posts about fundraising, we all donate, but we don't donate like large amount of money. I mean, we may donate like $5 or like $10, but it's still like it's how it works. Like every person gives this, but in the end, we managed to collect a lot. And speaking about how we would connect, I think that same, I mean, there will be a lot of organizations. There are already. There is this really great initiative that is called Repair Together.
Repair Together, okay.
Yes.
Maybe
And
you can put that into the chat room.
Yes, and yeah, you can check their page. I mean, it's a really great initiative by young people. And what they did in summer, they were going to the occupied territories, and they were putting like loud music, and with this loud music they were like cleaning all these ruins. They were rebuilding houses, and I think it's a really great energy that they have.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
And yeah, that's the last slide, and I wanted to finish with the picture on the right. It's a board that I saw in one of the girls' rooms, and I stayed in her place, and when I arrived in her room, it was the first thing that I saw. It was this phrase, like with these words written on the board, feel and far away, translated from German, because she's learning German now as she entered art school there in Hamburg. And it's how I feel, it's how she feels, and I think it's how all of us feel, these people who partially live abroad, or who left and who prefer to stay there. Because I also have friends like this who say, like, for me it's too much. Like some friends of mine, Ukrainians, who have been living in Europe already, they say, like, no, I can't go back by now, because like any air raid alarm would just like completely destabilize me. And I also have two friends who have little kids, and they also don't come back because of their kids.
So do you think there's going to be resentment for the people who come back and the people who don't? You know, from a patriotic standpoint, do you think something like that could emerge for your generation? I know it's a difficult question, but you know, having a young person here is really important to us to see what you guys are thinking. Well, how do you think about it, I guess, is a good question.
Well, yeah, as I told you, the war is really it's really difficult. How to say? It's really a difficult situation for like human relationship, and indeed, there is this. How we say in French? We say décalage, like resentment. You said, right? When like there's kind
Maybe
of
a bad word. Yeah.
Indeed, it's what's already happening. I mean, there is this debate about Ukrainians, like good or bad Ukrainians, in terms like patriotic or less patriotic, because I think all of us are patriotic, but some people, they show it less, and they probably do less than other people, because there are some people who are really devoted, like who are very much invested and who volunteer, who organize like fundraising, and who have a lot of energy. There are some people who left in Europe and who just like post pictures of their kind of like European lives, and that's what really annoys me and my friends, for example, because yeah, there are also kind of like social codes, I would say, that were created.
Yeah, I know it's a complicated question that is really impossible to answer it. Yeah.
But I would say that, of course, there is yeah, there's this division. I would call it division.
Okay. That seems, well, that's like in any good society, there's always good division, right? So what's up for you next, Daria?
What's up for me next? Well, I'm going to Ukraine in 1 week actually, and I plan to continue to take pictures, and I really want to focus on young people because I feel that it's images like it's like people we don't see so much in press, and also images that we see currently in press, they're mostly focused on either like civilians who suffer or soldiers, but I believe that it's important also to show the generations that will rebuild actually,
Yeah, no,
and how they live, and also to show some peaceful moments who we start to appreciate much more since the beginning of the full-scale war, and sometimes some, how to say, not explicit picture that may even be called peaceful picture can speak about the war very loudly.
yeah. You could end your share. Does anyone have any questions for Daria? I have to tell you that it was really great to get your perspective. We haven't had that in a long time. It's actually very refreshing.
Thank you.
Very, very. So you go back, you're gonna go back March 1st. Do you have, are you working for any publication, for your stories, or is it all just for you? I mean, when you go back, how are you financing that? Just from a practical standpoint?
Yeah, actually, like last time when I went, I had 2 commissions. And I didn't show my commissions in the presentation today because I wanted to focus mostly on my personal work. Otherwise, the presentation would be would be too long. And last time I did commission. One was about maternity during the war,
Okay.
and but I wanted to have more time to develop the story, but. It's like as when you work for press, you're always in a
On
hurry.
deadline.
Yeah,
There's always another deadline.
exactly. And another story I did for a French magazine. Maybe you know the newspaper that is called Le Monde.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, and so they also publish a magazine with every issue. There is a magazine that goes with the newspaper that is called Le M, so just M magazine. And I did a cover story for them about 2 Ukrainian sisters, one living in Paris and another living in Ukraine, in Kiev. And it was really, really important for me to work on the story because it's kind of like representing my life also, and also this feeling of being there and being far and living between 2 countries. And I was happy to work on this piece. And this time I think that I may accept some interesting commission, but I would prefer to focus on my personal work.
Right.
Because as I already did like two quite big ones, I can allow myself to now to not be so stressed financially.
It's interesting to have you here and I'm thinking like, you're really the future generation of photojournalists, and it's going to be intriguing how your age group, your vision, moving forward, what you're going to bring, to the rest of the world, is really intriguing, as we look towards the future.
Yeah, I wanted also to add that like as I see and as I feel, it's really important to speak about the war through personal stories, because actually it's what I felt when the full-scale invasion started, that like it was so global and so massive, all what was going on, that I didn't know on what focus first. And that's why, speaking about the war through personal points of view, I felt that it was the most legitimate from my perspective, and maybe most touching.
Yeah, I think, and maybe Jamie can speak to that. A lot of times you go to these places and, which way do I go? Do I go left, straight, right, back? What story, but what story is most compelling? I mean, Jamie, can you share a little advice, from that perspective of being in many zones yourself over your career? How do you do it?
That's a tough question. I guess it's like jazz, you play it by ear, and each situation is different. I mean, there's no ready-made rule. Okay, I'm gonna do it choice A. Sometimes choice A isn't even available, so you gotta improvise. I think your work is very fresh, and it shows a sophisticated eye. You're 26, it's mind-blowing how good it is.
Oh my God, thank you.
It's fantastic work. It really is.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So and sometimes you go one way and it turned out to be the perfect way, and sometimes you go the other way and it's just a dead end, right?
That's it.
But I guess everyone will always say it's the preparation. You prepare as much as you can, and then you go with your gut, and it's either there or it's not, and but there's always something to find, right? There's always something.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can't. I can't tell you how we're all so impressed, and we're so thankful for you to come in. And you should know, like we've been telling everybody, we want you to come back. We want you to tell us more stories, and we want you to be safe. That's the most important thing. But we really appreciate it. Anyone else have any comments, any other questions? Brian Tomko is a dear friend of mine, and he's also very, very much impressed by what what you do. I guess here's a question: do you sell prints?
Yes, I do. I do sell prints.
Okay, I will reach out to you, in the next day or so, because a person there was interested. So we'll find out, how we can make that happen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just went I saw the last messages in the chat, and I wanted to thank to you, Frank, and to everybody who joined tonight, and thank you for appreciating my work. Also, I'm really glad to have opportunity to share it with you, and we stay in touch for further projections.
Yes, that's it. And any of your colleagues that are there and want to have them reach out to me, because like I said last night, unfortunately, I'm sure we're going to be doing this again. But really the main focus is you being safe and you being careful, and now your grandparents are still there, right?
Yeah.
Right, and we know that they're safe and all of that.
I mean,
As safe as you could be.
Yeah, as safe as they can be. Yeah, they have little generator that provides them with electricity, because in some districts of Odessa, it was really people had electricity 2 hours per day. It was the case of my grandparents also, but likely they had this device that provided energy.
And they don't want to leave, right?
No, but it's the situation of most of old people.
Right.
It's like they don't feel it's. I mean, they are so attached to their houses and homes that it's like even the very idea of like going somewhere and they don't speak English at all. So like
where are they going? Yeah.
yeah.
It's yeah. We found that all the way through. The older people want to stay. It's their home. Where they're going to go, and on and on and on. So yeah, we understand that. Well, we hope that they remain safe as well.
Thank you.
So tomorrow we're going to have Carol Guzzi, which is very exciting. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer. And then on Friday we'll have Paula Bronstein and Wolfgang Cham. So Daria, we thank you so much for doing this. And like I say, you have a standing invitation, as you engage in your story and your personal journey. You always have a place to come and present. So we would love to have you back whenever you'd like to. So
Thank you so
with
much.
that, I leave you the last words for tonight. Give us some wisdom about you, the young Ukrainians.
Oh wow, such responsibility. Well, wisdom of a young Ukrainian, you said, right?
Yeah, I mean, you ended with the comment that you want to. I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I wanted to, as the last words, I really wanted actually to thank you sincerely for speaking about Ukraine, because it's very important. I mean, it's psychologically also very important to understand that we're not alone in all of that. And I mean, it's one thing that we see in the news, but it's another thing to have like human contact like we have now and to feel the support. So yeah, it's really appreciable, and I believe that this year, 2023, Ukraine will win this war, and we will be able to welcome you in the new rebuilt Ukraine that is so beautiful.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly when it ends, I'm sure the West is going to pour all kinds of resources and money into making it the shining capital, on the hill there. So we have to prove everyone wrong. So again, we thank you, everybody. Good night. Be safe. Enjoy Paris. Not too much though.